was an apprentice carpenter, and I went into. I played for the Works League, for the Works. It was Wednesbury Tube. It was the company I worked for, who Glenwed had made all the copper tubing, and I was a maintenance carpenter. And they created the job for me, actually. Both my uncles worked at this firm. One was in charge of the garage for the mechanics, and the other one worked in the foundry. You know, as a crane driver. But they both worked on the HR man, and they hadn't got a. They had two carpenters there, but one was in his 70s, and the other one was about 35, I think. You know, so the old fella, he was he'd come back past retirement age, but it was great for me because I went in there and I learned so much things from them, so much stuff, and they created, to say, this position as an apprentice carpenter, just so that I could play football for the Works team. You know, this was his idea. Anyway, so I used to play for the Works team on a Saturday, and then I would play for Bilston Ex-Servicemen's Club on a Sunday. That's really weird. I mean, I was like 16-year-old kid then. You know, so playing in the men's league. I mean, some of these men were like 40 odd and whatever, still played. You know, and on the Sunday we used to have to go and put all the corner flags out and put the goal nets up and stuff like that. You know, it's just like different world altogether. But I was doing that, and I really enjoyed it. And then I got the call to go and play for Brierley Hill Alliance, and they were kind of a good non-league side then. You know, because you had all this infrastructure of different leagues and things, and they were a good non-league side. So I played for them for a little while. I went and played for Bilston. I played 2 games for Bilston, which is another quite a good non-league side. But they had a fella who was the coach, and he turned around and come up to me after 2 games. And I'd done really well in the games. He said, I'll tell you. So he said, you're better off thinking about packing up. He said, you ain't got a hope in hell of making it. I never ever went back. I'd love to have gone back and say to him after that, especially after I won my England cap, and go back. You're a good judge, mate. But you're going to get that. And so anyway, I went back. I went from there. I was playing regularly for Brierley Hill. I had a few games, and then they put this game on. It was like a friendly game. It was basically specially to showcase me, because all the clubs, there was Villa, West Brom, Birmingham, Wolves and Walsall. Right, all the big Midland clubs there from that area, and they all sent their scouts down. And rewind to when I first left school, when I was at school, Walsall came along and wanted to sign me as a schoolboy, so play in the youth team. So I did. I was playing in the youth team, but then I used to go training twice a week and play on a Saturday. But training consisted of running around the pitch. That's all it did. And then I'd play on a Saturday. So I think I did, I don't know, I must have done 6 weeks, 7 weeks of this, or maybe a couple of months. And I went up to the trainer one day, and I was running around the pitch. I went, this is all we're ever going to do. And he went, what do you mean? I said, it's just what we're all ever going to do, just run around the pitch. I said, I've come here to learn to be a goalkeeper, not a marathon runner. And he went, well, he said, get off and go. And I went, no, I ain't running around the pitch anymore. I said, oh, I want to be a goalkeeper. I said, I don't need to run around the pitch. And anyway, he went mad at me, the coach, and I just walked in. And I walked in, and I never went back. I did a George Best. They sent me the thing through for playing on the Saturday, and I just never turned up. So stuff them. And so anyway, I went back. This was so. Fast forward to when this game was on. all the scouts had come to watch me play. And one boy with the things, but I almost didn't make it. I only got there at half time because the fella was going to give me a lift to go down there because I couldn't drive or anything at the time. He went to the wrong place to pick me up, so I just walked home. I went back home, and next thing I know is a knocking on the door and saying, he's obviously gone down to Bryce. Oh, the fella didn't turn up, and he went, where did you try and pick him up from? And he said, yeah, you should have gone to this place. He was waiting there. Again, no mobile phones or anything. So he just got this knock on the door. He said, get in the car quick. He said, we've got to get down there. So I got down, I got changed, and I went out and played it in the second half. And obviously I did all right anyway, because they all come in and said to me, I think there was Birmingham asked me to go down for a trial. Aston Villa were, Wolves did, but then Walsall were knocking on, and so I kind of basically just sort of sat back and thought about it, and I thought, well, I want to go. I'm gonna first of all, I said, I've got to look at where I might get on the best, quickest. And obviously it was Walsall. They only had 2 goalkeepers. They had 2 professional goalkeepers. They didn't even have a youth team goalkeeper. I think they were getting some people in from, just to fill it in. They didn't actually have a youth team goalkeeper. So I thought, I'm going to go back and I'm going to sign for Walsall. Or I'll say to them anyway, to prove them wrong that, when I was there in the first place, they should have listened to me and not maybe run around the pitch and teach me to play in goal. Anyway, I went back to them and said, look, I'll sign. So I signed as an amateur, and then I went straight into the youth team. I was playing in the youth team all the time. And then it come to around about, I think it was this sort of magical time of February, when I moved to West Ham and whatever. And they come up to me and said, well, look, you've done really, really well. We're looking, what do you want to do? And so they offered me either to stay as an amateur, or to go part-time professional, or a full-time professional. And that's when I said, I want to become a full-time and try, see what happens. So I did that, and then I went, I played this first season, then my cartilage went, so that was great. So then I was out for quite a while, and I got told by the surgeon who did it, because my left knee just kept blowing up. I just couldn't get it to stop swelling up. And he told me, and I hadn't even played obviously in the league then, the league game. And he said, the best advice I can give you, he says, is to retire, pack up. Well, I ain't doing that. I ain't even started, so. The physio at Walsall he was brilliant. He really worked hard with me. I used to go back every afternoon and work with him in his private practice, and he'd work on it and on exercises and stuff, and in the end he got it there so that he worked it out. And then I got into the first team 8 games from the end of the one season. The goalkeeper was named Bob Wesson, and he was having a bad time, and they were in danger of getting relegated, and so they brought me in. I said, look, I'm going to play you. There was 8 games to go. I played in all the 8 games. I did really well, and we stayed up. And then the close season. And then I'm thinking, I'm going back to the next. Thinking, oh Jesus, because it was one of them where you didn't know whether I was going to play or start or anything like that. Played in a few of the pre-season games and didn't know until the week before the season started that the manager come up to me and said, I know you're probably wondering, he says, but you're the first team keeper now. He says you're in. So I was only 18 then, so it was a big thing for me. And then I played the whole season, and again I got some good reviews and played really well in places. And then come the close season, the club were struggling for money, and they didn't have kind of really many saleable assets, that people were going to come in for. So, and I was one of them, and it was only 15 grand I went for in the end to QPR, 15,000. and that happened in the close season. And the lovely story about that was we were away on holiday down in Weymouth, and there was no mobile phone, so I got telegrams stuck under the door in a guest house where we were staying, saying ring Walsall immediately. So I rung Ernie Wilson, the club secretary, rung up, and I spoke to his secretary, and she said, "Who is it?" I said, "It's Phil Parkes." She went, "Who?" I went, "It's Phil Parkes." She went, "Well, who are you? What do you want?" I went, "I'm your first team goalkeeper, if you don't know." "Oh, are you?" She said, I don't really follow it." I went, "Good." I said, "Well, could you tell Mr. Wilson he wants to speak to me." So, "Oh, okay." So anyway, he's come on, and when Parkes, he said, he's just come on and said, "Parkes," he said, "we've had an offer for you. You've got to go down to Queen's Park Rangers. You've got to be at Queen's Park Rangers straight away." I said, "But I'm on holiday." He said, "You'll have to come back." I said, "I can't. I don't drive." I said, "I'm booked on a coach to come home the weekend." Oh, he said, "Well," he said, you're going to have to just get down there, or get there as quick as you didn't say. Get there as quick as you can. If it had said get down there, I would have had I might have thought about it. But I said to him afterwards, I said, "Look, Mr. Wilson," I said, I really appreciate it. I said, "But one thing," he said, "I'm on my holidays, and I'm not going to cut that short for anybody." I said, just not. I said, "And secondly, I don't want to go and play in Scotland for anybody." You heard that one before, but that is.
I saw you after, did I?
Did you? And I went. It was like he just turned around and said, "Stupid boy." He said he was like Mr. Mannering, "You stupid boy." He said, "QPR in second division side, and they're in London." And I was in the phone box, so no one could do it, but I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. And he turned around and said, "Well, you've got to get down there straight away, because we've accepted the offer, and they're very keen to talk to you." So I come back on the Saturday, and I went down there on the Monday and signed. I actually signed on the Monday, and we were going down to Worthing to Lavinia's auntie and uncle. So, and that was it. So then I've come back, and I was still only 19 then when I went down to QPR, and I was third choice keeper then when I first went there, and then they sold Mike Kelly to Birmingham, and then after he'd gone to Birmingham, Alan Spratley, who was a reserve keeper, he went into the first team, and I played in the reserves on the Saturday. We got stuffed 3-0 at home by Swansea at Loftus Road, but I played really well. And Les Allen was the manager, Clive Allen's dad, and he pulled me into the office on the Tuesday, and he went, "Right," he says, "you're playing Saturday against Leicester." I went, "Oh." He went, "Yeah." He said, "Tried Alan," he says, "but he says you are going to be much better than him." He says, "So you're making your debut." And that was it. And that was the second game of the season. As a 20-year-old, because I'd had my birthday, like August the 8th. So, second game, I was playing against Shilton again then, because I mean we've been playing against one another since we were kids, in schoolboy football, because he was up at Leicester and I was in the Midlands. So, and that was it. That was the start of it all, and I'll sort of like a start of 20 odd years of being in goal. But I think I played 940 odd games altogether. So
you challenged the league at QPR at one point, didn't you?
We should have won the league. Oh yeah, we were the best. I mean, without a doubt, we were the best side. Never to have won that league. I mean, it was an amazing side. It was Dave Sexton, another ex-West Ham connection man who was manager, and he played. He was a good coach, very very good coach, and he was instigated it. Yeah, he was the manager then, and we it was one of those where we were kind of mediocre up until we had 15 games left in the season, and we took 27 points out of 30. So we won 13, drew 1, lost 1, and to be honest, we should have won all 15 because we Norwich beat us 3-2 away, and we drew 0-0 with Sheffield United, and they were bottom of the league, and they went down, and we absolutely hammered them, and we just couldn't score. And the same thing at Norwich. Kevin Keelan, their goalkeeper, he just had one of them games, and and we lost. Dubious penalty, and an unbelievable volley, and a bad back pass from Dave Clement. Ted McDougall scored when I played West Ham, who was the only man that made Trevor Brooking swear, I think. Yeah, believe it or not, I won't say what he said, but yeah, we should have won the league. Definitely should have won the league. Had some good characters, obviously Stan Bowles and Jerry Francis. I'm always asked to pick a side. Who did it? Who was the better of the two sides? I think QPR was probably the best footballing side in that 1 year, or that 6 months. It wasn't even a year, but in that 6 months, they were amazing to watch. But as far as consistency, I think the side we're talking about now, from when I first went to West Ham from 1979, sort of 1980 up to 84, was the best.
And the point about you, Phil, is that people mentioned about your odd boots yesterday on the programme, at least last weekend on the programme.
Yeah.
And before they get on about your gloves, tell us about these strange gloves that you wear.
Oh, these.
You got them there with you?
Yeah, I've got the gloves here. Yeah, they're German actually. They made the German third choice goalkeeper Clef, who plays for Mönchengladbach. He sort of sponsors them. Puts his name to them. And when we played over there at pre-season, he lent me a pair at half time because mine weren't doing too good, and he gave them to me after the game. And
what's the point about the padding on the back?
Well, I think it's just to stop the ball from slipping when you punch the ball.
it. And on the front, they seem to be very padded as well.
Yeah, it's a special material. It sort of holds the water.
Can you turn it towards the camera? Let people have a look at that.
Yeah, it holds the water, and for some reason or other, they're fantastic. It's like glue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dave Sexton's got a lot of contacts in Germany, and he sends away for them.
So the man with odd boots and strange gloves.
That's it, yeah.
A brilliant game yesterday, apart from that one moment.
That's it.
And so did you as well, Liam. Thank you very much indeed, both of you, for coming and joining us on the big match today.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks very much.
Well, the story, they never ever said that they were going to sell me or anything. I wasn't for sale. That was the thing. I was never ever for sale. I'd gone into training on a Wednesday, and I used to train with Bob Wilson, who was the ex-Arsenal keeper, and he was very good. Bob was a great coach, and he used to come to QPR once a week. And we'd train on a Wednesday, and all the other guys, we'd have Tuesday off, and they'd be in, and then we'd be in on a Wednesday when all the first team on the reserves, they'd all be off. So there'd only just be us goalkeepers in on a Wednesday with the youth team, and Bob would come in and do stuff. Anyway, we were training, and Steve Burtonshaw was the manager, and he just come round and he said to me, he was just making polite conversation. Then he walked away, and just before he walked away, he said, "Oh, Phil," he said, I need to see you in before you go, so make sure you come up and see me up in the office and see me." This was at the training ground at Birkbeck College, and so me and Bob were sitting, and Derek Richardson, we were sitting in the bath after we'd finished training, and just sitting and laughing, and Derek had got out, and then just me and Bob sitting there, and Bob said to me, he said, it's really, really important that you have got to work, because QPR was struggling, they were down the bottom, and said, you've really, really got to be on top of your game, he says, if they're going to stay up in this division, he says, because the side's not that good, he said, and they're going to rely heavily on you in a lot of the games. And so, we were chatting about that, and come to get out of the bath, and I went, I said to him, I've got to remember, I've got to go and see Steve, haven't I, Steve Burtonshaw, and they went, and I said, you never know, Bob, I might be on the move. And he just laughed at me and just turned around and said, absolutely no chance. He said they'd never sell you in a million years, he said, because if they do, he says, they're basically condemning themselves to relegation. He said, if they sell you. So anyway, I've gone back upstairs to see him, and he went, you got to go back to the ground to see Chairman Jim Gregory. because he handled all the transfers. The manager was only manager by name, really. I mean, Jim used to sort all the contracts out and all the transfers. And so I've gone back to see him, and he just said, "We've had an offer for you." And I said, "Who is it?" He said, "I can't tell you." He said, "All I can tell you is it's a lot of money." He says, "So you've got to go and see Jim." Anyway, I've gone back to I've got dressed, whatever, I've gone back to see to the ground, to Loftus Road, to see the chairman. Anyway, he's come down, sit down, glass of champagne. I went, "Jim," I said, "I've just finished training, you know." This was what he was like, the chairman. I said, "No, thank you." I said, he said, "Well," he said, "I've got to tell you," he said, "we've had an offer for you." He said, "And the club, we've accepted it. But obviously it is down to you. If you're the one, you say yes or no." He said, "But I'll tell you now," he said, "I don't really want you to go." He said, "It was only a board decision." He said, I don't want you to leave, you know that." He said, "I want you to stay here forever." He said, "But, he said, it is a lot of money." And he still hadn't told me how much it was. And he said, "Well," we said, "we're going to, or who it was." This was the other thing. And I'm thinking, "Oh, okay." And then he's turned around and I said, "Well, who is it?" And I said, "And how much?" He went, "Well," he said, "it's 565,000, which is a new world record for a goalkeeper." He said, "And it's West Ham." And I went, "Oh, he's kidding me." I said, "Jim," I said, if I'm going to move," I said, "if I ever move," I said, "I've got to, it'll be up, it'll be at Manchester, or it won't be across London." I said, if I'm going to stay in London, I want to stay here. I said, "So if I'm going to move, I'd be to another club up north or something." Anyway, he said, "Well, I tell you," he said, "you've got to ring this number," he said, "and speak to John Lyall, and then you can talk over, but he wants to come and see you." So anyway, so I've rung John up, and I'd never spoken to John, or I'd never met him at all before that day. So he said, "Look," he said, "whatever." And I went, "Well, John," I said, I'll be very, very honest, I'm not really interested in it." And I said, he said, "Well, look," he said, "I know that," he said, "his son has come out of the blue and everything," he says, "but we want to meet, I'd like to meet you," he said, "and put our point of view and what we want to do here at West Ham, with the vision we've got and all this and whatever." So I went, "Okay." So he said, he said, "I'll come drive out to your house, wherever," and where we are and sitting now. This is where he came out to. He came out to our house, and I met him, and Eddie Bailey came with him, who was his kind of number two when they did this kind of stuff. He didn't do any coaching, Eddie, but he was his chief scout and to watch players and things. And so he came out, and as soon as I sat down with him, I don't know what it was about him, but he was just different to any other manager I'd ever spoken to in my life. And I'd been under a lot of managers in the short space, my relatively short space of my career. I've been 11 years, and I'd had, 4 or 5 managers at QPR. I was only at Walsall for 2 years, and I think I had 5 managers in those 2 years at Walsall, So I've been under a lot of managers, but no one ever come across like John. And he was so passionate about West Ham and the way they wanted to play football and everything else. And he said we're a great club. He said the fans, he said, are the best in the world. He said and we love to play football. He says, but unfortunately we can't defend to save our lives. And he said, you've probably seen some of our results, and I always remember, you see West Ham results, it's always, when they played at home, it was either, you get 3 3s and 4 3s and, 3 2s, and it was, you never ever got a 1-0 or whatever, very rarely. And so I just sort of said, it's what it is. And he said, well, I'm trying to build a new team. He said, I really am. He said, I've got to the situation, and he said, the first cog, if you like, in the machine is you. He said, I want. It's basically, I'm going to be building it around you. He said, I've got some good players already there. He says, but I've got to get a few players to make us better. And so, he just really sold me on the club and this vision that he had He said, we've got quite a bit of deadwood in there that I've got to get rid of. And he said, so really, I want you to sign. And in the end, I mean, he was so good, and he went from here, left from here, and he went up into town to he says, is there anywhere we can go and have a meal? He said, because, you need to sit and talk to your wife. He said, talk to Lavinia about it. He said, and then see what you come with. He said, and we'll come back later on. And so we had the two kids. The kids was only young then at the time, and so I said, you better get the kids to bed because we've got to talk. So we sat down and we talked about it. And she said, you're really interested? And I said, well, you wait till you meet the guy. I said, he's amazing. I said, but perhaps it is time, for a new challenge. I've been there 9 years. I said, so, these happen. I'm a great believer in things happen. If you try and make them happen, they don't happen. But you come to a sort of a fork in the road every now and then in your life, and you just got to make a decision. Otherwise you'll regret it. Same when I signed from as apprentice carpenter, I had a choice of staying as I was and being a part-timer, or going full-time, on a 2-year contract. And I said, well, I've got to do that 2-year contract, because otherwise I'm for the rest of my life, if I just play as an amateur and I just carry on like this, I said, I'll never ever know if I'm could have made a professional or not, full-time professional. So I said, I've got to try it. If it doesn't work out, then you come back onto the other road, sort of thing. And that was the same with John. I said, when I spoke to Lavinia about it, he came back with Eddie and said, well, have you had a chat? And I said, I have. And I said, yeah, I'm happy, I'm prepared to sign. And anyway, he said, right, he said, before you do that, we'll all sit down. And he then sat Lavinia down as well and went through everything, what he'd gone through with me as well, so that she was happy. That his philosophy, when he was a manager, he says, if the players' wives are happy, then the player should be happy. Keep the family happy, and then everything should be good. And that was how his thinking was. And so that was what happened, and I signed. I did say that I got to speak to Jim Gregory, and I tried to phone Jim. There was no mobile phones or anything in those days, and he was out somewhere, Jim. I couldn't speak to him. So basically, what he turned around and then said, John turned around and he said, well, look, he said, this is not going to be released. No one will know about this until tomorrow. He said, if you want to speak to Jim Gregory in the morning, he said, and then if you decide that you don't want to sign, I actually signed on that night as well. I signed the contract and everything. So it was all signed, all done and dusted. He said, if you ring me up in the morning after you've spoken to Jim Gregory and say, look, we've decided, he's trebled our offer, or he's done this, and he's trying to keep you, he wants desperately to keep you. He said, I'll just rip this contract up. And no one will ever know I've come to your house to speak to you. And that's the kind of guy he was. That's who he used to love to do business like that. It's not plastered over all the papers like a week before, or is he going, is he not? And he was just a very private man. And I spoke to Jim in the morning, and he said, look, he said, if you're happy, he said, I'll be sad, he said, that you're going to go. He said, but you've been a great servant. He said, you've been here 9 years. He said, and I wish you all the very best. He said, obviously, he said, it's a good business for the club. And so, that's how it happened. And the next day it was released on the radio on the Thursday lunchtime, come out on the news. And Bob Wilson was driving back from Arsenal, and he said he nearly crashed his car, because he's like listening to the radio, and he had to pull over and stop and turn the radio up and just listen, and he couldn't believe it. And then on the Friday morning, he came to Chadwell Heath, went off my first training session, and interviewed me like this for Football Focus that he used to do, yeah. And we just couldn't believe it. We were sitting in the bath, on the Wednesday afternoon, and then here he was Friday morning, I'm a West Ham player, and he was interviewing me. So that's how it happened, and it took the whole world by shock. No one knew. It was amazing. Yeah, all the players at QPR revolted. They were absolutely, because they just said, you know, what's the point? You know, we may as well not even try. You know, just shot ourselves in the foot.
Remember your debut?
I do remember my debut very well, very much so. Oldham at home, yeah. It was a fantastic day. I mean, I had to get there because of living here and getting up. It's about 70 miles, I think, from Upton Park here. And we used to then drive through London. There was no M25 or anything, so we used to drive all down the embankment, you know, through the Rotherhithe, down to Canning Town, Barking Road, all the way through to Upton Park. And got used to doing that, but I had to get there. I always used to leave really, really early just in case there was a problem on the road, and so I was always at the ground by 1 o'clock for a 3 o'clock kickoff. So. And I got there and just sat down, and I'll never ever forget it, but I've walked into the changing rooms. I'd met Rob Jenkins before. I hadn't met any of the players at all before that day, because when I got there on the Friday, they'd all finished training, they'd all gone home, and I'd had to have a medical in the morning. I've gone to see, and I did a bit of training with some of the kids, the youth team and that, and Ernie Gregory, obviously, the goalkeeping coach. And so I'd never met any of the players, so I've gone in and to the dressing room, and Rob Jenkins was always there, obviously the physio. And I said to him, I'm at the first one. I said, I'll probably be like this all the time, Rob. I said, you know, make sure that I get here nice and early and whatever. And he said, yeah, you're not the first. He said, Dev's in there on the couch. What do you mean? He went, just have a look round there. Alan Devonshire's got all his kit on. It's just after 1 o'clock on a Saturday, fast asleep on the couch. And he said, oh yeah, he just gets in. He said, puts his kit on and he goes to sleep. You know, till all the players start coming in just before 2. I couldn't believe it, and I mean, then me and him kind of. So he was the first one that I'd met when I went to West Ham, and we became great mates and roommates as well. For so many years until he actually got his injury and his knee. Then he was out for a while, and then I did room with him again after a little bit. But yeah, so and obviously still great mates now, which is good. Yeah.
Did you have any reservations about dropping down a league, because you were partly responsible for that, wasn't you too?
Well, I was in that respect, because the year before was when West Ham got relegated, and they were like favourites to come straight back up again, because they did have a good side, but they came to QPR with about, I don't know whether it was 3 games, something like about 3 games left. QPR were down in the bottom as well, so we're pretty much side by side down there in that danger zone, and they played really, really well that day, and but I also played really, really well, and I had one of them games, and we won 1-0, and I remember Pikey, Jeff Byer, coming up to me after I'd gone to West Ham, and he said, it weren't for you, he said, you know, we'd have still been in the first division anyway, he said, I always remember, he said, I don't know how on earth you stopped it, but he had a header from really close in, and I managed to twist, knock it out of the bar or whatever, and he said, we could not believe it, he said, we just couldn't beat you that day, and I said, well, you know, I said, it was one of them things, wasn't it? I said, but, you know, here I was back at West Ham after they'd got relegated, and then QPR obviously selling me the next year, the very following season, and then QPR got relegated as well after that. And I think, and I seriously do think that had John Lyall had the money to buy 2 or 3 players in that, after we'd got back into the first division, if he could have strengthened the squad with 2 or 3 top players, I think we would have definitely have won the league in that early 80s, in that period between 80 and 86. We would have won the first division without a doubt, because we had a side that was almost good enough, but we didn't have the depth, the big squad like a lot of all the other sides had. So, yeah.
Funny, because we showed in the year 18 months before World Cup, we showed a lot of ambition signing you and Ray.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure if it was entirely down to Len Kearns, but I think was Reg. It was at the table.
No,
It wasn't Len Kearns.
Reg was the chairman when I can't. He was. There's a great. If you I read John's book and it was lovely because I mean John was at the board meeting when they were discussing trying to buy me, and he said this is what I want to do, and there was 5 members of the board, obviously including Reg, who was the chairman. And they were discussing it, and they went on and on and on. And he went, well, he said, I think it's the only thing we can do. He said, gentlemen, is to have a vote. He said, who's in favour of spending all this money on a goalkeeper? And whatever. So it was 2-2. Like 2 wanted, and the other 2 said, we can't, that's way too much money to spend on a goalkeeper. So that was it. It was 2-2. And it was, so the chairman had the deciding vote, and he just got up, walked over to the hat stand, I believe, put his coat on, put his hat on, come over and picked his briefcase up, and he went, well, gentlemen, he says, it looks like we're going to get a new goalkeeper, and just walked out. And I thought it was brilliant. When I read that, he sort of backed John all the way, and he loved John. And he backed him all the way, and I thought, and he had to, when I first went there, Reg had to, we had to wait for the deal to go through, because Jim was, what Jim Gregory had done with Rodney Marsh deal, I think, or it was, or someone, when he sold him to Manchester City, he had done deals, the Man City wanted to pay by instalments, and Jim Gregory went, you pay all the money up front or the deal's off. And so they knew that he'd done this at West Ham, and so basically they were ready for it, because Jim did try to do that. He didn't want it to really go through, so he said, you can have him, but you've got to pay all that money up front. So 575 grand up front, no instalments. And they said, that's fine, Mr. Gregory. Our secretary will bring a cheque over to you as soon as he can get over in a cab, if that's all right. And so, I was at the ground when all this was going on, and I'd had a medical. I'll tell you about the medical in a minute, but when we went on to the ground, and I'm in John's office upstairs, and John's sitting, and we're chatting, and Reggie's just walking up and down, and John went, for God's sake, Reg, take him round and show him the boardroom, and then take him around and show him the ground. He says, just get out of here, because you're driving me mad. Because he's just walking up and down, because he's thinking it's not going to go through, it's not going to go through. So anyhow, he took me around all the boardroom and everything, and he took me over to the chicken run. We're walking around the pub on the chicken run, and he went, this is the infamous chicken run. I mean, I didn't know, I hadn't heard of it before, you say so. And then he explained, this is where, this is where the real hardcore, the dockers stand, he said, and the abuse they give out, sometimes to West Ham as well. And there's this old boy sweeping the terraces, right? A flat cap on, old boy just sweeping up the terraces. And as we were walking along, he stopped and he turned around and he went, hello, Reg. He went, how are you? And he went, oh, Bill, he said, I ain't seen you for ages, how are you? He went, meet our new goalkeeper. He said, we've just paid a world record fee for him. And he went, oh, good on you. He went, hope you do all right. He says, you do all right here. He said, they'll love you. He said, the fans are all right. He said, they're very fair. And he just carried on sweeping up. He said, oh boy, sweeping up the ground, talking to the chairman. I've always thought myself, well, Abramovich at Chelsea, or all these people, someone like Sugar at Tottenham, they wouldn't lower themselves to talk to people like that. But he was the chairman of West Ham, and it give you a good feeling. You're thinking, hang on a minute, this is a proper club. This is a family, and obviously it all went through okay. So we had to go over and have a medical, which was just round the corner from the ground with Doc Brill. So anyway, I'm on the. He says, "I'll strip top off." So I'm down in my pants. I'm sitting on the bench, and I'm on the edge of his couch. Right, he said, "Let's." So he's doing all the stuff, blood pressure, blah blah blah. Then he said, "Right, okay, let's have her knees." He said, so, and he's gone. I've done this, and he's gone. Ooh, oh, okay. And the other one, and he went, "Oh dear." John went, "Problem?" Said, "There's a little bit of arthritis in those knees, John." He went, "Is the dog?" He went, "Yeah." He went, "Bill, tell him how many games you've missed in the last 9 years at QPR." I went, I said, "I'll be honest." I said, "I think it's something like that, 16. And John turned around and he went, "No, it's 11, actually. See, there's nothing wrong with him, Doc. You just sign that form." There's nothing he was going to say was going to stop John getting me. So it was quite funny, isn't it?
No one say a bad word about John Lyall.
No, because there was nothing bad about him. I mean, you didn't want to get on his wrong side, you know. The only worst thing was that he did used to go on a long time. He never. I always remember we played at Leicester and we got beat 4-0, and Tony Cotty come off the pitch. He was muddy, and Tony Cotty come off the pitch as his kit was cleaner when he come off than he went on the pitch. I'm sure, honestly, and seriously. And so we've got in. Everybody's like black and white minstrels. We're like covered in mud, everything else, and everyone's sat down. And John went, "Right, sit down," and they went. I can't remember who it was who said, "Hang on, before you start, John," and they ripped into Tony Cotty. They really gone, "Look at the stuff. Yeah, you didn't try a leg out there. You didn't. You know, you're not just there to score goals. You know, you've got to work and be part of a team as well, and run back and do this and be prepared to tackle." And everybody had a while going. Then they said, "Okay, right, yeah, you can go, John." And he went. He just ripped into all of us, and he kept on and on and on and on. And it was like November time or something like that. And Leicester then, Filbert Street had big high ceilings in their dressing room, and we're all starting to get cold. We're actually shivering, and people are just sitting there like, and they're going like this, and heads are going, and he was just oblivious. He just kept on and on and on, and in the end, he just went, "Right, that's it." He said, "We're leaving in 10 minutes. Hurry up. You'd be on the coach, otherwise we'll leave you." There you go. And that was the only fault I've ever said about John. He just went on too long.
Tell us about that first season at West Ham.
Yeah, well, we started off so well. You know, my first bit there was I came in February, and hopefully they were going to see that by signing me that you know that they would get promotion. I mean, I could stop them, you know, but you know, still I can't score them. So you know, it was just one of those things that I think then he finished about 4th in the league that year when the first time I came. And then obviously the following year we're going to be one of the favourites. But at the end of that season, that's when John basically really started cutting the team about, really, if you want. I mean, he got Mervyn Day went, Tommy Taylor went, John McDowell, Billy Jennings, I think Alan Taylor, I think Robbo had already gone, Keith Robson, but there was a lot of players that, you know, like there's 5 or 6 players there that were in the first team that he got rid of, and then he brought in Alvin, became a regular. Then, I mean, Alvin had already played and made his debut, and Dev had already made his debut. Funny enough, Dev made his debut against QPR when I was playing in the League Cup at Upton Park. But then he bought Ray Stewart, and then I think little Paul Allen started to come through from the youth team. Pop Robson went, and then he ended up, I think he bought Stuart Pearson as more of a stopgap, really, if you like, because Stuart was older at the end of his career, sort of coming to the end of his career, and he had a few injuries. But he played up front with Crossy, and it was the start of the building of a new side, you know, and these guys, you had Bonzo, obviously, of course, and Trevor, and Frank. Frank was left back there for those first couple of seasons I went there, and it was just an amazing transformation, if you like, because us at the back there, you had Ray, you had Alvin, Bonzo, and Frank and me, the five of us. We ended up getting such a good understanding together, and we became very, very. From letting goals in for fun, it became very, very difficult to score against us. You know, so especially like in that second division, and then we were real favourites to go up that year. And then obviously it didn't work out because we got on that cup run. And once we got on that cup run, then it kind of almost like never mind about the cup, worry about the league. We just got into the whole fever of the cup run. And, you know, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen. And obviously it did. We went to Wembley, but we just missed out again on getting back up again.
Is there any criticism?
There was quite a lot of criticism from some of the fans because they thought what we were going to get promoted. You know, we were going to win the league and that was it. And then because we didn't, and I remember we got beat by Fulham at Upton Park in that year, that cup just before, and that was just before the end of the season, and that it basically kind of finished our chances off of even getting, you know, coming second in that league, and I think a lot of the fans, you know, really did vent their anger a little bit at that time, and I remember saying to somebody in the press thing, they went, "Oh, well, what about the fans? They really turned on you today, yeah." And I turned around and said, "Yeah, it won't stop them coming round and knocking on the door saying, 'Have you got any cup final tickets for you?'" And I went, "Oh, you know what have I just said?" But he put that's going in the paper, and they actually put it in the paper, and I'm thinking, "Oh no, I never say that." But as soon as we got to the cup final, I think everything was forgiven. You know, they had a great day out then. Yeah.
Before we get to the cup, is there any memorable games in the league in that season?
Not the cup season. No, it wasn't. It was the following season that it all then obviously kicked off, because then that's when we romped away with the league. Then I mean that year, I mean we broke all kinds of records. You know, clean sheets, and in a season we got the record number of points. In that whole second division, because it was 2 points for a win then and 1 for a draw, so we broke that record, and that was very, very memorable. But no, not really any league games. Obviously, the cup games were the things that stuck in your mind, you know, that season.
Let's talk about the cup. Start with the draw.
Yeah, up West Brom. Well, that was probably my finest hour. I think. Yeah, that was one of the games where I really couldn't do any wrong. It was just one of those things that I was actually going back. My father-in-law had died in November previous to that, in '79. So this was January 1980, and we were playing at West Brom, back in the Black Country. You know, so I was born like 10 miles from there. You know, so. A lot of people I knew were West Brom fans that I used to go to school with. I knew there was a lot of people there, and I never actually even, you know, never even crossed my mind, you know, that I was ever going to play, you know, I was going to have a game like that. It was just one of those things that happened, but we knew that we were going to be in for a game because West Brom were top first division side. They were really good. They had Cyril Regis, Laurie Cunningham, Brian Robson, Asa Hartford, little Gary Owen. You know, they were a very, very good side, and basically as an attacking side they just absolutely slaughtered us, but it was just one of them things. And I mean, we scored against a run of play, and we were standing in half time. We're in there, gone to have a pee at half time, and Bonzo's standing next to me. And this is the gospel truth. He turned around and he went, "You are unbelievable," he says today. He says, "I don't know what's got in you," he says, "but keep it there for God's sake," he says, because he said we should be 6-1 down. You know, he said without a doubt. He said if we were coming 6-1 down, you know, John couldn't have a go at us. He said it was just one of them things. And he said, you never know, our name might be on that cup this year. And I reminded him about that when we got to Wembley. And then obviously second half, they equalised right before the end. Cyril Regis handled it, controlled it in the box with his hand, and then volleyed it from about just inside the penalty spot. And I actually got my hand to it, but I think just went in underneath it, but I just quite couldn't get enough on it, you know. So obviously that was 1-1. Disappointed, but still in the cup, if you like. And then obviously it went on from there. And there was all things like that. I mean, but I remember Bonzo playing at Leighton Orient. He had that big headband on, you know. I mean, he had such a big gash on his head, you know. They wouldn't let him do it now, you know. They'd say, no, you can't play in that, you know. But he wanted to play, and then beating Orient 3-2, I think it was, you know. You think, God, they were actually that was probably one of our hardest games, Orient. And then I think it was Swansea, wasn't it, after that? And then the Villa game. The Villa game was probably the most weird of all things, when Ken McNaughton, what on earth he was doing. It had 0-0 written all over it, that game. No one was going to score until that corner came over, and he went up and handled it and knocked it away with his hand. Ray steps up, as he always did, and just, you know, calm as you like, just put it in 1-0, and, you know, we're into the semi-finals. It was crazy. And then Dev scoring in the semi-finals. He didn't score many goals, but what goals he did score, they were always memorable, and, you know, very classic goals. And he played a great one too with Stuart Pearson, and put it in and scored. And then they equalised, and then whatever Frank was doing up there, I haven't got a clue. And he dunks in the winner, you know, and runs around the corner flag, and it's another piece of history, really, that what on earth was he doing, and why was he doing that up there? And then obviously when we went to Wembley, again, vast underdogs, you know. We're playing Arsenal, top side, and I think everybody, even probably the most diehard of West Ham fans, never really thought that we were going to do it. You know, in their hearts they were hoping, but in their minds they think, we ain't really got much of a chance because we're playing such a good side. But we were so confident, because we had got such a confidence together now as a team. We were all growing and building together. And then, obviously, we just went on and got that result. Trevor's header. People always say that he just hit his head, but when you look at it, he actually does fall backwards and twist himself round and heads it in, you know. So, yeah, he meant it. The cup final, I didn't have a lot to do. You know, really didn't. We played so well. A couple of saves to make, and that was it.
Tell us about it. It was Brian Talbot took the free kick.
Brian Talbot took the free kick. It was quite comfortable to say, but you've got to make sure that not nowadays they'd have punched it away, splashed it away, but it's there. If you catch it, it's end of story, you know, and that's what I did. You know, the move's finished. There's, you know, the game's boom, all of a sudden, their momentum's gone, and that happened at that game. There was another save that I made, which was Graham Ricks actually come inside on his right foot, brought it in, and on his right foot, but he's hit it with the outside of his left foot, and it's on the corner of the box, and it was very, very obnoxious looking. I think everybody thought he was going wide, and I actually dived, and I just got my fingertips to it, and I reckon after I watched it, and I had to do it, I had to go for it, because I think if I'd have left it, I think it was going to hit the post and it would have gone in, but it was like one of those things that happen in a game that everyone never really looked at it as though it was a chance or was going to happen. But I reckon it would have gone in if I hadn't touched it. And I've got the faintest of touches on it, you know. And then, again, that's a bit of fate, I suppose.
Do you remember how you felt before the game?
Nervous, obviously, of course, yeah, which is good. I always felt nervous before every game I played. because I think that's good. It gives you the adrenaline, and it gets you worked up, gets you into the frame of mind. And I did that. Yeah, at Wembley was very, very similar. I mean, we were there early, obviously, and got soaked up all the atmosphere and that. And then the build up as you're going up the tunnel and all that, till you get out on the pitch. As soon as you get out on the pitch, then obviously everything, you calm down and you're back into the game mode, and that's it. You're fine. But yeah, the build-up's always a little bit, for that game, it's a bit more intense than it is for a normal game. When it was all over, it was kind of, surreal, really. We've just beaten one of the top sides in the country, and if not Europe, and the fans, we knew the fans were going to go wild. It was a lovely day. I was just sad that I was with my father. My father couldn't be there because obviously passing away before that. But all the family, all the other with the family were there. My aunties, uncles, and everybody. So it was nice that they all saw that as well. And then it was just a whole weekend of going back through the East End the next day. But I always remember Bonzo saying to me before the cup final, he said to me, make sure you take this all in. Because he'd played in the 75 cup final, and he said within a week, he said, I couldn't remember hardly anything about that cup final. He said, it just passed me by so quickly. He says, so, make sure that you try and savor every little moment and take it all in, so that it'll stay with you. He says, because I know I'm going to do that this time, he said. I mean, it's funny that we actually had a coach and they had to put tables for us to stand on in it, and open the sunroofs. I mean, most people have an open top bus, don't they? No, it's not West Ham, because they had to deal with Lacey's coaches. I don't think they had an open top bus, so we had to use Lacey's coach. And Bill, our normal driver, he was driving anyway. So it was good. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure that they'd, because quite a lot of us were sitting on, actually out of the sunroof things, because they took all those off. We were sitting outside on the actual roof of the coach. You think around the corner a bit quick, lose a couple of players, that's a bit expensive. And I'm certainly don't think it'll happen today in the Premier League that anything like that would happen. But it was just an amazing. When we started off, obviously, closer we got to the East End, then people, as we were going down, people were still people just walking around could see, and they were clapping and cheering. But then once we started getting into the real East End, went to Bow and Stratford and all that lot coming in, then it was just amazing that the people were all the houses were done up with flags and banners, and everywhere you go you heard I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles blaring out. They did that kind of a rock version of it, and that was blaring out from everywhere. People up on roofs and waving. It was one of those things that is very, very. It's probably the nearest I could probably say to it. It'd probably be like VE Day in the war, after the war had finished, and the whole of London came out then, didn't they? And just celebrated in the streets, and it was exactly the same thing. We couldn't, it took such a long time to get through because the people were just everywhere in the streets. It was, so the deeper we got into the East End, then the more the crowds were in the way, and the police had to try and move them so we could get through. Just an amazing. And then when we got to the town hall, and we had, I can't remember her name, but we had a lady mayor, and basically we've gone up onto the balcony and everything, and she's come out and she's come rushing over to me and threw her arms around me, and there's a great photo of me hanging her up on the bank, because I opened in where Upton Park Station is on the brow of the hill, just the other side of that. It was a McDonald's. I don't think it's there now, but it was a McDonald's, and I got the gig, if you like, to go and open it. And the mayor was there, so there was the mayor, there was me opening it, and there was like a few dignitaries and things like that. And it was, and I got chatting to the mayor, and we basically, she was saying, "Oh, I hope you do well this year." She said this season, because she said when West Ham do well, then the area does well. She says the whole borough of Newham does well. She said, because it's like a knock-on effect. People go to work, they're happy on a Monday, production goes up, and everyone's good. She said it's so good for the area. And I said, well, you never know. I said, we might go and win the cup for you this year. This is another one of them throwaway lines, isn't it? But she said, we might go and win the cup. I said, and then that would be great for the area. Oh, she went, that would be absolutely amazing, if we did that. And that was it. And then that's going back to the town hall, and there he was. And we both actually said, there you go, in that fate that I spoke to you about winning the cup, and you said it would be lovely, and here we are. We got the cup. So,
any more amusing stories from between when you joined West Ham and the cup?
Not so much the cup final then. No. I mean that was probably that happened very quickly, because obviously I'd only been there just over a year when we won the cup. I mean, I went there in the February, and then in the following May, obviously February, went in February 79, and then in May 1980 we won the cup. So it was very, very short time. I mean, we didn't even get a chance to kind of think about it, because it was, for me, going from QPR to there, that first to the end of that season was like a whirlwind. I mean, everyone was I was still the most expensive goalkeeper and everything else. And so I always remember we played at Luton and we won 4-1. So we got that not a monkey off your back, but got that away from the press, that they can't, who's going to be the first person to score past the most expensive goalkeeper? Well, it was Luton. So, it didn't matter. And then I think we lost up at Stoke, which was a big game, a big game. We lost 2-0 up at Stoke. We didn't play very well up there. The team were crap. And so then that was the first thing. That was it. Who was going to beat them? And that was that one out of the way. And so we just carried on. And we just used to take each game as it come along.
Yeah. What are your memories of Upton Park at that time?
The atmosphere. I was used to, when I went from QPR to West Ham. QPR's ground is very similar to West Ham's, very, very close, very compact, and the crowd are very, very close to you. A lot of players. That's one of the things. It's intimidating for players who are not used to that. Places like Everton and Liverpool, they're farther away. The crowds are farther away. Man United, for instance, are much farther away. And Chelsea, in the old days of the need a pair of, but it's like the London Stadium is now. So we were very, very. Players were very conscious how close the crowd were to them when they came to Upton Park, especially the Chicken Run. Because I mean that's been the graveyard of many a winger and many a West Ham winger as well in the past. But I think that was the thing that got me about it. Having played there for QPR, was always at the atmosphere. It was always electric. If you played there at night, even more so under the floodlights, it seemed to, I don't know, just make it come more alive. And probably one of the best atmospheres I can ever remember at Upton Park was the night that we got through to the League Cup final against Coventry, and Jimmy Neighbour scored the winner. I think we were losing 3-2 from the first leg, and then we won 2-0 to go through to Wembley. And I mean that was just an amazing night, and the crowd were incredible. And I think they're almost like another player, if you like.
Did you feel any pressure from them at any point?
Never ever any pressure from the crowd. No, I never let that get to me anyway. I was kind of very laid back in that respect. But no, I think from the very first time I made my debut, I sort of had an affinity with the crowd, if you like. I got on with them, and yeah. And I think I've obviously had a thrown a few in, I suppose, and been like some of the other keepers that they've had. Then I can understand, they don't suffer fools gladly. Yeah, but I think overall, I think they were always happy with me.
I was looking back on the results a few weeks back. We had a little bit of bad form between the semi-final and the final. Do you remember that?
What's that in the league? Yeah, I think that was, again, I think that was because we'd got to the final. I think then that was this Fulham game. That was part of that. Accumulated in that being the game that probably just sort of like pull the plug under us from getting a chance of getting promotion. And what even made it worse, because Gailey played for them, didn't he? And he scored as well. So he scored one of the goals. I think we lost 3-1 at home, and he scored one of the goals, which made it even worse, because obviously he told me about it when he came there. Yeah.
Is there any animosity for Mervyn Day when you came in?
No. Me and Mervyn were mates. We were friends from right early on when I was at QPR. We played together. We played in not together, but we played in like the London Five-a-Sides and things. And there's a few things I'd done where I'd been with him and got to chatting to him, and both being young goalkeepers. So pretty much, I think I'm just a little bit older than him. But I think he was all right, and I mean he was always a hell of a keeper, and he was basically brilliant for when he first came into the side, and then I don't know what happened. I think he actually got married, and I do think it changed his whole way he played, and I think he put a bit of weight on. Obviously, he's probably getting proper food and whatever, but yeah, I think he put a bit of weight on, and he just lost his confidence completely. And he went on after. If you think about it, he went on from West Ham. He went to Orient, then he went to Villa, I think, and then he went to Leeds, and I think that basically got his confidence back. When he went to Orient, it built his confidence back up again, because as a goalkeeper, confidence is really, really important. You can have ability, but you've also got to have confidence in that ability. And he got to a situation where he just wouldn't come off his line for crosses. And I remember the fellas saying to me that's the situation that, like, Bill was telling me that when a ball came in, they just didn't know what was going to happen. Do we going to go for it, or is Mervyn coming for it, and that was all that indecision, and that's why they were having the horrendous results. And they said the big difference when I come in, obviously I sort of bossed it and controlled it, and if you don't hear a shout from me, you go for it. If you hear a shout from me, get out of the way. And that was it, and that was the big difference. I think they came in, and then they had the confidence built between all five of us as defenders. Yeah.
Did you ever hear the phrase that we were everybody's second team?
Yes. Always. Yeah. I mean, I think even housewives and women. I'm a perfect example. I've been in people's company and we're talking, and the husband's football, wives, absolutely no interest whatsoever in football. But that Trevor Brooking is such a lovely gentleman. He is, he's how every mother would like their daughter to marry someone like Trevor Brooking. This is what we're going about. The drugs, the drugs and the alcohol, that you wouldn't believe what he gets through. He's been teetotal all his life. But yeah, we used to rip it out of him. But that's one of the things that the housewives used to say. It's lovely. And because Trevor played for West Ham was their favourite team. They didn't follow football at all, but West Ham were their favourite team. And I think the way we played football, and it comes back to something that Sam Allardyce never understood, but the West Ham way of football. The West Ham way of football was started by Ron Greenwood and carried on by John Lyall. and killed by Lou Macari when he came in, because it was that was it. It was just those two managers who played a certain style and a certain way. I think had Bonzo taken over, from John, what they should have done was bring Bill in as manager and put John upstairs, and it would have been, the continuity would have still been there. We might even still be playing the West Ham way now, but that's all long gone. But that was, for me, was when they were playing that style of football, they tried to play, and I think everybody who was going to watch football at the time, we'd get beat, or West Ham would get beat, but they were always trying to play it the right way, and I think that's what everybody looked at, and everyone went, well, yeah, if I didn't support my team, I'd support them because of the way they try and play.
Thompson got there. Oh, what a save from Parkes.
Stapleton, a good header. And Stratton just keeping it in. And did well to find Frank Stapleton again for Manchester United. This could be dangerous. And Clarkson in a lot of trouble.